So if that's it for the questions, I will now move on to that next section, which is idea nurturing and synthesis, and creating ideas from this inspiration that are your own, that aren't necessarily taken from other people and other people's work and plagiarized directly. And I want to preface this section by saying that sometimes you'll have an idea that's already fully formed, if you will, in your head and ready to act upon. So this step can be kind of obsolete, kind of unimportant for those ideas, and you can take it straight onto the creation stage. But often ideas can be like seeds, and they need a little bit of work before they're kind of ready to share with the world or ready to take ahead to the next stage of kind of acting them out. So I will show you what I actually do for ideas that need a little bit more work, ideas that perhaps aren't fully formed, like I said. And for this, I'm going to dive into my Obsidian Vault and show you how I use the Zettelkasten system. And I'm assuming that if you're on here, if you've seen a lot of my work, you'll be at least somewhat familiar with what a Zettelkasten is. But in short, it's was originally developed, a system for taking notes, originally developed in on physical note cards by a sociologist that kept them all in a box and linked the ideas together through written references to other paper note cards in his box. But we can do that digitally now with digital notes in Obsidian, like I'm going to demonstrate. We can do that through making backlinks between different files in our vaults, and that's how I manage my ideas and put them together. So if you just bear with me a moment, I'm going to start sharing my screen and I'll take you into my Obsidian Vault and show you how I do such a thing in there. So I think this is going to bring that up. So bear with me there. I've got it open on my phone on the side too, so I can see what you guys are seeing. And to me, that looks like you can see my Obsidian Vault. I'll open in the left sidebar for you.
Yeah.
And perfect, thank you. All right, we will go ahead now and I'll show you how I would take perhaps a seed of an idea, like something that I'd captured in the moment in, well, the example I'm going to show you is, I believe, my Todoist inbox. I captured an idea I wanted to work on earlier, and I'm going to take you through how I create a note in my Zettelkasten, which is this area folders here. If I just show you that all of the atomic notes about one idea at a time are in a flat structure in the areas folder of my vault, which is kind of the areas of the power method from Tiago Forte, but I've modified it into a Zettelkasten, which is kind of the premise of the system I sell in my product Parazettel, which I imagine some of you would have checked out. But this is my actual personal Obsidian Vault. So you're seeing quite a personal kind of insight into how I work and what I think about. So if we're going to create this note in the Zettelkasten, we're going to first need the seed of the idea that we captured beforehand. So for that, I'm going to use my Todoist inbox, which I will just bring up here. And here's the idea at the bottom of the inbox that I recently captured. And it's about aiming for the shortest possible time between ideation or generating an idea and content creation. I just came up with this idea earlier whilst I was writing the notes for this workshop, and I thought it would be a perfect example to show how I'd elaborate a little bit more on an idea. So what I'm going to do is create a new note in my Zettelkasten, and this here is the folder note, acts almost as like an index for the more relevant, more important files inside the folder. So I've got, if I just quickly show you this, I'll gloss over it because I want it to be applicable to everyone who's using slightly different systems. If you are, I've got a data view table that just shows the files in the folder ordered by kind of links to them, links away from them, and ordered by most recently edited. So the kind of relevant new ones are at the top of the list, sorted down to the ones that perhaps were created a long time ago. So that's that. Like I said, I don't want to dive into too much detail about that, because I want to show you how I develop an idea. So we create a new note in this folder, and we call it something similar to the idea because that captures the seed of the concept quite well. So we'll call it something like aim or and for the title, you want something short, succinct, that explains what's going to be on the note, because I'll demonstrate how links to the notes can be used in context in other notes. It makes it very easy to navigate between the links between relevant ideas, and I'll quickly use templator to add just a little bit of metadata. I don't go overboard with that kind of thing, but I'll just add a little bit of metadata to the note here, and then I will go into elaborate on this idea. So I'll type something out now. I'll try and work on this idea. To what I'll do is I'll expand on it, and then I'll try and link it into the rest of the Zettelkasten. And because I'm intimately kind of aware of the notes that I have in the Zettelkasten already, I've got some links to other notes in mind that I will show you how I put in and develop the idea when I write it. And in your own work, you should kind of have this same affinity with your own stuff, with your own kind of web of knowledge, if you will, and you'll know where instinctively where certain ideas will fit in because you've written about them before. But I'll demonstrate to you what I mean. And if you just bear with me, because I'm doing this live, I'll have to do a little bit of thinking as I expand on this idea. So I might not talk whilst I write, but I'll go over it afterwards. So yeah, I'll take you through that now, and then I'll explain what I've done. Yeah, ideas. They won't be as powerful when you revisit them the longer you leave it. However, you need, and I'm going to add a link to another note here, which I will explain once I've finished writing the entirety of this note. But if you just watch what I do here, and I'll go over it afterwards. Okay, so I say that's just about created for this note in the Zettelkasten, and I've elaborated upon the one line of the idea that I captured earlier. And just as a slight tangent, once that note has been created, I don't need this task anymore, so I tick it off of my inbox, and I will fill the screen with Obsidian again and take you back to the note so I can kind of explain what I've done. So in short, I've taken that seed of an idea that I've captured in one of my capture methods, and I've gone about elaborating on it, kind of going into more of what I knew and understood in my head when I had that idea, but didn't really want to write in in order to keep things succinct and not lose my flow when I was writing these notes, because I could always come back to it. And it's kind of a good example of what I actually wrote about in this note, because I came back to the idea pretty soon and fleshed it out and elaborated on it. But anyway, you can also see here that the power of the Zettelkasten, because I understood that there was a note about another topic, and I'll try and open this up for you now in another tab. And this is another idea that I created and written a permanent note about in a previous time. And you can see how that slowly, by having an understanding of what different notes you've created in the past and what ideas you've had, what ideas come up a lot in your work, you can begin to create this almost web of knowledge as you link to ideas and away from ideas. And you can see, even if I wanted to now, I could open out this other note as well and go about reading it and generating ideas that I can then take forward to the next step in this process, which I will go over shortly. And so you can see that through doing this, you can take these kind of points of inspiration that you've had in the past and flesh them out into a web of knowledge that's your own ideas, as opposed to the ideas of the author. To come back to what you were asking me about, Carol, it's more you might take the inspiration of an author, and I'll show you that. In fact, I will take you to, this is where I keep all of my notes that I've kind of highlighted useful points from books and different resources on the internet using Readwise. So Readwise syncs everything into one folder in my Obsidian Vault. And then if I wanted to work on some ideas that I captured from Let's Go, Tiago, of course, that would be a good one to pick. So this is Notes for the Power Method by Tiago Forte's newer book that inspired heavily the vault that I'm working in now. And if I wanted to, I could take the kind of highlights of another author here. I could perhaps create a new note, for example, and link to this note here, but in the new note contain all of my own thoughts and ideas about the content from this note and this book. And through that way, I'd kind of be able to link the knowledge from another author into my own web of knowledge, linked to other ideas that are kind of accessible to me once I put all of my work together in one spot like this. And you can see that over time, if I bring up the graph view of all of these red notes, are these notes here in the Zettelkasten, links between ideas that I've created and written about over time. And I'm not one of those people that kind of has hundreds of thousands of notes in their vaults that's just arbitrary, that never kind of go through them or use them or anything. I prefer to do a lot less, but more of what's actually going to be used in the future when we get on to this next step. So I can kind of see which notes are more important. So that's Deep Work by Cal Newport. You can see it links to a lot of inspiration that I've had in my own idea and writing. This might be a flow from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, important to do with psychology. This might be Building a Second Brain, obviously, because I've done a lot of work around personal knowledge management and the like. And like I said, you can see over time how notes from my Readwise and these inspiration points and these inboxes and these capture methods kind of collate everything together into one place, so that I can it's almost a catalyst for these ideas. They bounce off each other, they form a web around common concepts and topics, and they branch out and create more understanding and linking of these ideas that can then be used and taken on further into the content creation, which will be the next step of the process that I'll go into just a moment. And just to touch on what you said as well, Joel, to do with capturing off the internet, this is how easy it can be with Readwise importing notes into your Vault. You simply set up the plugin, and all of your highlights from books and articles and tweets and things are easily accessible in your Vault. So that's how I've kind of reduced the manual input that's required to get ideas from kind of book or article into my Vault. But again, from time to time, I do write manual notes because I think that they're really they stimulate you up here a bit more before you come to flesh out the idea, which is good, because sometimes you can lose a bit of the kind of the zest of the idea, especially if it's just a highlight and you've been inspired by a highlight. And that's what I meant actually in that note that I just wrote as a demonstration, is you've got to act as quickly as possible, as sensibly possible, from when you get this idea to when you want to create. But yeah, tangents aside again, because I've just gone off that Readwise page, was just a reminder to show you how I kind of automate a little bit more of the system of capturing ideas from pieces of content on the internet. But that's how I would work with ideas and inspiration in my Zettelkasten to elaborate on my knowledge and create a web that can be then used to inspire creation of content in the future. So I'm going to hop back to the Zoom screen now. I'm going to get rid of that horrible infinity mirror and ask everybody quickly if they've followed me through that section on managing ideas and creating a web of knowledge.